business. Basically means we'll get promoted until we can no longer justify being promoted because we're no longer doing a superior job. Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to be great at everything. You're going to only be great at some things. And if you don't learn how to identify your weaknesses and hire people to help you in those areas where you're weak, you're going to eventually stagnate. And businesses only do one of two things. They either go up or they go down. Businesses never stay flat. If they stay flat, there's something weird going on, because businesses are either growing or they're declining, one or the other. So if you reach a point where you've exceeded your abilities to grow, you've got to start bringing in people to help you. That's really fundamental. There are stages that all businesses go through. There's stages of infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and maturity. Those are the stages all businesses go through. And essentially it's this. Infancy is when a business is living on its initial investment capital and has not yet established a positive cash flow that it can depend upon. Childhood is that the basic positive cash flow has been established and the business is now beginning to develop processes to sustain and grow itself, but hasn't yet reached a solid level of sustained existence and growth. Adolescence is when you begin to start bringing in teams of people, supervisors, you're developing processes. The income of the business is no longer really at risk. It's still not 100% assured, but you're beginning to now build the processes that will sustain the business longer term. Adulthood is when you begin to really focus on growth. And at this point, your business is mature. You've got processes in place for revenue creation and production and for management. And you have professional management teams in place now that, the business is growing. And your primary focus in the adult stage is bringing in the funds and the capital that you need to accelerate growth for things like adding inventory, adding equipment, adding personnel, and adding marketing and market share. And then in maturity, you're actually beginning to reach a point where you're protecting your market saturation and your market share for certain initial markets that you've created and initial products. And now you're beginning to focus on things like diversification and return on investment to the investors. So those are the stages that a company goes through as it begins to grow. Now, if you're in business, you need to be extremely aware of the value of your time. Every one of us has the same limit on scarce resources. There are just so many hours in a day. In the world of business, with your 40-hour week here in the United States, you have 2,080 hours a year. And if you figure that 2 weeks, 40 hours a week, 80 hours goes out the door for vacation, there's roughly 2,000 hours a year of time that you can put in. Now, as an entrepreneur running your own business, you can just about double that. But forget that for a second. Let's just say that your goal is to earn $100,000. Well, the reality is, if you're going to earn $100,000, you divide the 100 by 2,000 hours, that's 50 hours, $50 an hour. So how much do you have to bill for yourself to make $50 an hour? Well, the reality is you need to be able to consistently produce somewhere around 3 to 4 times in terms of billable productive earnings for your time, what you charge or pay yourself. So if you have an employee that is, you're paying $20 an hour, you have to bill somewhere between $60 and $80 an hour for that employee. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to cover the downtime. The downtime for they get in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, and they're not working for 30 minutes. The downtime for smoke breaks and water cooler time. The downtime for training that everybody has to have. The downtime for administrative functions that everybody has to have. So the rule of thumb for businesses is you need to have the ability to generate revenue per employee somewhere at a minimum 3 to 4 times what you're paying them. So if you're paying somebody $40,000 a year, that person needs to be able to generate $120,000 to $160,000 in revenue for your business. Otherwise, chances are extremely good that you're losing money. So you need to think in terms of how much do you want to earn as a company, how much do you want to earn as an individual, kind of work backwards and make sure that you're staying productive as much as possible, because time is all you've got to sell. The more you can get for your time and the more your time that you're productive in, the better. Be sure that you do task prioritization, typically knocking off one of your most onerous tasks at the first part of the day and then tackling the rest of them. So get rid of, while your energy is high, get rid of the tough one that you've got for the day and then knock the rest of them off after you've gotten rid of the tough one. That's a good process. Another aspect is day planning. Make sure that you enter each day with a plan of attack on how you're going to utilize that time that day. These are just some simple concepts that a lot of people don't employ that can actually help you tremendously get greater productivity out of your day. Let's talk about a sales process, because every business needs to have a well-developed sales process. Otherwise, you're not really a business. You're just somebody out there that's kind of stumbling into deals. So let's talk about a sales process. In a real simple fashion, let's think about a guy in his truck. So a guy in his truck or a landscaping company, and the guy has a truck, he buys a lawnmower, and he says, I'm going to go to heck with living the corporate life. I'm going to go start a landscaping business. So guy goes into a neighborhood, starts knocking on doors, saying, hi, my name's Guy, I've got a truck, I've got a mower, I'd love to mow your lawn, can I? Well, you knock on enough doors, somebody's going to say yes. And you do that often enough, and pretty soon you've got enough jobs lined up to keep yourself relatively busy. Now, the challenge, of course, is you don't want to just be the one mowing the truck. You'd actually like to have mowing the lawn. You want to actually have a number of other people mowing the lawns where you're managing them and in fact going and getting other jobs so that you can have multiple crews, so that you're leveraging time and money and that sort of thing. So the first stage is to get enough business to keep one mower and one guy going, and then you hire a person to help, and then you go knock on a few more doors, but eventually you get enough people working for you and enough jobs to where you can no longer really justify knocking on doors. You need to have a more efficient process. So you start doing things like putting door hangers on doors and waiting for people to call you back, or hiring a crew to do door hangers, or you do direct mail into a neighborhood. You certainly also do other things like put nice signs on the side of your truck and the trailer where you haul your stuff. You make all your guys wear nice looking shirts so that you look more professional and more hireable. And so as you start to ramp up your business, you start to have a more complicated sales process in place to generate the business that you need to have to sustain and grow your business. You may end up thinking about things like local cable television in the market that you're in, because they kind of segment it down at a relatively small area. But certainly you're going to do a lot of direct mail, you're going to do a lot of door hangers, you're going to still continue to knock on doors, but maybe you'll be hiring people to do that. So you have a process. Now eventually you'll decide that getting into the commercial world makes more sense because the jobs are bigger, they pay better, and so you'll start focusing on property management companies and real estate property owners that are commercial property owners, and so you'll create a direct mail campaign, maybe hire a professional salesperson. It's their job to go meet these people. All of those things become a sales process that you can rely upon. Businesses that don't have a sales process struggle to create enough revenue to sustain themselves. So one of the first things as an entrepreneur that you want to focus on doing is creating a sales process to sustain your business. A sales process, all sales processes go through 4 steps. Number 1, design the initial process. Number 2, test the process. Number 3, modify and improve the process. And then number 4, replicate the process. So these are the steps of designing a sales process. Do your best job, create one, go start running it, test it, modify it, improve it, and then as you get your sales process nailed down, then you start plugging other people into it so that you can expand the overall productivity of the sales process, because it's only at that point that you'll actually have a real sustainable business. Now let's talk about what the sales process at a high level should generally look like. There's really 6 steps in the sales process. Number 1, identify your suspects. Who are the people that are likely to need what you have? And you typically do that by building a profile. Then you have to communicate to those suspects and hopefully then convert them, Then you qualify the suspects that might be prospects. Then you try to convert the prospects into customers, and when they do become customers, number 5, you deliver the goods or services that you've promised, and then the last step is you convert the customers into advocates and referral partners. That's a great process. So it boils down to identify suspects, qualify suspects, convert suspects into prospects, convert prospects into customers, deliver the products or services promised, and then convert the customers into advocates and referral partners so that they can sustain your business. That's kind of an overview of what the entrepreneurial world and experience is like, and really in many respects an overview of the things we're going to talk about later in the different books in this program. Thanks for watching.